Y'all were saying fat phobia doesn't exist? Explain this.
We've got a halfback, a wideout, ooh, a strong safety, and a team bus.
What's good, guys? It's Alissa. If you're new here, hello. First things first, y'all know I gotta get the formalities out of the way. You can follow me on TikTok, Instagram, all that information is in the description box down below. I also have a Blue Sky account. I be on Threads sometimes. I be everywhere. I'm also in my little influencer era, so you can also subscribe to my second channel where I'm trying to post more lifestyle stuff. Also, discomfort movies are coming back, so if you have any recommendations for discomfort movies you would like me to do, leave me some recommendations in the comments. Also, if you notice, I'm trying to change my editing style and how I break down these episodes because I was demonetized over the summer for reuse content. So trying to do my best with negating being demonetized again. So bear with me. Also, of course, I want to thank you guys so much for all the love that you guys showed me in my last Proud Family video. Like almost 100K views in 2 weeks is literally crazy. I've never done numbers like that in my life. And I just felt like the conversation that we were having was so important and so needed and so heartwarming and so touching. And I was just so glad with the reception from that video. So I thank you guys so much. Also, my very last upload wasn't even a new upload. The Me's retrospective, which is actually outdoing the Proud Family video right now with almost 100,000 views in a little over a week. Crazy numbers. I'm so glad to be doing bigger and better than ever since returning to uploading. Like, y'all was so scared that you guys were not going to accept me back, but the reception has been so great and it just really keeps me motivated to keep going for real. So thank you guys so much. I have another retrospective coming soon. If you have me on Patreon, I'll keep you guys updated on there, but I'm excited for this one because my rule of thumb is to not really do retrospectives on stuff that I'm not personally connected to, because like, how is that a retrospective if I don't know what the hell I'm talking about? Like, it's just fun to look back on things that I actually have a connection to. So we blabbered on enough. Anyway, in today's video, I actually want to piggyback off of the conversation that I was having in my wife and kids video about fat phobia. Now, I got a lot of comments from people saying that we're just making up words. Everybody's so sensitive these days, but the English language actually consists of these things called prefixes and suffixes, and that's when you put two of those things together and it creates a new word. Crazy, right? So just because you haven't heard of a word doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. But in this video, I want to talk about a Proud Family episode that actually touches on fat phobia. And it's when Penny goes on a date with the big boy out of the group in the season 1 episode titled Forbidden Date. The episode starts with Penny asking her dad if she can go on a date, which I thought was super random. Like, I don't have any character analysis or anything on that part. It was just like an interesting writing choice. Like, she just literally randomly comes up to her dad and asks if she can go on a date. I was like, okay. But of course, in true Oscar fashion, he tells Penny hell nah, and he sticks to his no boys rule. Penny insists that she's not a baby anymore and that she wants to go on a date.
You always treat me like a baby.
That's because you are my baby.
No, I'm not.
According to the blood test, you are.
In the episode Hip Hop Helicopter, which is the last Proud Family video I did, that was so crazy. Literally involved like grooming and boys being weird. But anyway, in this episode, Penny goes on the show called Hip Hop Helicopter and gets in trouble for wearing a revealing outfit. And her reason was because she's not a kid anymore and everybody else is wearing it, so she wants to wear it too. And in that episode, we were having a conversation about how Penny believed that growing up just meant wearing more revealing clothes. But in this episode, for some reason, she believes that growing up just means you start going on dates. So I just think that Oscar and Trudy need to have a sit down with her about what growing up actually means, and that when you grow up,
your heart dies.
We had a great conversation in the last episode that I covered of the Proud Family about wanting to emulate what the older women in your family or that you're in proximity to are doing in kind of a way to emulate femininity. For me, I literally remember growing up, that was like being a kid and being at the little kids table or being with the little kids and you wanted to be with the big kids. In my case, I have like a whole generation of just girls. My generation in my family is like all girls. So I wanted to hang out with like my big cousins, my big sisters. Like that was just so cool to me. And you just wanted to do everything to get into that circle and do what they were doing. So like when you reached a certain age, they allowed you to start hanging out with them. You know, they will allow you to just get ready with them, go out with them. Your parents would be like, okay, well, yeah, y'all can go hang out with them. And like the little kids would be like, what? That's not fair. Like it was just kind of cool cool to be a little bit older and do a little bit older things. But as a kid, you don't realize that that's like literally surface level desires on what it means to grow up. And the funniest thing is I was actually using the word we a lot in that last video, but that was just honestly me standing in solidarity with the girls that I knew were doing these things that I remember growing up. That doesn't mean I was doing them too. See how y'all took that and ran? Because my personal experience is that, and I think I talked about this in the 𝙈𝙪𝙗 video, I didn't date my first guy until I was 20 years old. And I also didn't start really expressing my femininity. So like wearing more revealing clothes, that doesn't necessarily mean feminine, but just being more comfortable in my body until then. There's kind of a direct correlation there. One came before the other. So I started being more, you know, wanting to be more beautiful and wearing makeup and doing my hair. And then the boys started to flock, right? Yeah. But I also said in that video that people just seem to have ignored that I grew up more masculine than I did feminine. For me, that was because I grew up recognizing that femininity was villainized. So if you express any form of femininity, liking boys, very, you know, heteronormative views, liking boys, wanting to do your makeup, wanting to do your hair, wanting to wear feminine presenting clothing as a woman or, you know, as a little girl or even just a teenager, that like you were immediately put in this category of grown up, especially as a Black girl. And I have mostly sisters. So just growing up, I noticed that they were being treated differently for being more feminine. And so I didn't want to be treated that way. And so I would kind of conserve myself. So I would wear like baggy clothes. I was more tomboyish. And that wasn't because I wanted to be. That was literally in like rebellion to not be treated like how my siblings were being treated for being feminine. Because you were automatically placed in this category of like, you're being fast, you're up to no good. I know what you're up to, even though you're not, you know? And I peeped that. But when I was 18 or, you know, just was able to be on my own, making my own decisions, living my own life, then I became more comfortable to express that femininity once I kind of separated from my home life. The reason why I wanted to explain that a little bit further, because I didn't in the previous video, because I was just trying to make a point, was because I seen a comment that was like, no, you talking about we? No, that was just you wanting to be fast and grow. I'm just like, the worst thing I was doing was like drinking. Like, do not be doing that. I'm not an advocate for that. When you look at things in hindsight as a grown-up, it's like, hell no, I would not accept that kind of behavior from a child or a teen. Like, no. But like, the point I was making was I don't have to be the direct example as in like my personal experience. I remember those things growing up. Here I am on a tangent again. I remember those things growing up. I remember girls wanting the sew-ins, like, because that was hot, that was popular. I remember the girls wearing the shorts or the short skirts under their clothes, going to school and get dress coded because their parents didn't allow them to wear certain things. It's like, I remember this stuff. I'm not saying it was horrible and terrible, but like, and all those things were just different ways that young girls were trying to emulate what they thought was growing up. But it wasn't actually what being a grown-up was about, as we will learn now, having to pay bills and have responsibilities, right? Anyway, Penny tries to get a cosign from her mom saying that she's not a baby anymore, but even Trudy had to agree, like, girl is giving baby right now.
Mommy, tell Daddy I'm not a baby anymore.
I don't know, Penny. You aren't very convincing doing all that whining and crying.
After Penny runs off in frustration in true teen fashion, Trudy suggests that Oscar go talk to her and at least explain why he has these rules set in place for her. But Oscar was like, nope, he doesn't have to explain himself to a child. Why is my AirPod in? I was watching a freaking As Told by Kenya Patreon video before I started recording. But when Oscar said that, I was like, aha, that's what it's been all along. Oscar himself is just not mature enough to have the conversation with Penny, so he uses this excuse that he doesn't have to explain himself to a child because he's an adult and she's a child. But as he so clearly pointed out, he is her child. But she's, you know, she's also Trudy's child, so maybe that's where Penny's intellect comes from. Ooh. But also as his child, I feel like he should give her a little bit more credit. Penny actually is able to have these mature conversations at her age. Because if you really think about it, what is he really trying to say? Like, the kid that he birthed is not smart? That's crazy. That sounds crazy. Even at Penny's age, which I believe at this point in the show, she was like 13, 14 years old. Later in the season, they said she was 14. I can guarantee she can understand and comprehend the conversation that Trudy wants him to have with her. And the conversation isn't even a deep one. one. Like, just explain to her why you have this rule in place. Why? Kids naturally just want to know why. They're learning, this world is new, and you learn as you go. It's literally one of the first words that kids learn, and they literally can't stop saying it over and over and over. And Oscar's reasoning for this parenting style is because he's just raising her how he was raised. And I mean, we see where that got him.
Mama, let's go!
Later in the episode, Penny tries to zoom past her parents to hurry up and leave to go to the amusement park.
I'm going to the Wild Wild World amusement park with my friends.
This part was just funny to me because you could tell that it was a tongue twister for Kyler Pratt to say, so she had to say it slow. Wild Wild World amusement park. Wild Wild World amusement park. Wild Wild World amusement park. Anyway, Trudy and Oscar are headed out to a double date with Sunset and Carlos, which is her friend LaCienega's parents. So Trudy tells Penny that she gotta watch the twins, which are her siblings, BB and Cece. Trudy had forgot about Penny's plans, so she has to take the twins to the amusement park with her. But this part confused me because Sunset, which is LaCienega's mom, is taking Penny and her friends to the amusement park. But Sunset is also going with Trudy on a double date with Carlos and Oscar. So how the heck did she forget if they're all riding together? I don't know. I think that they just said that so that Penny would have a reason to bring the twins to the amusement park to bring the plot along for what happens later in the episode, but I'll get to that. Before they leave, Oscar makes it a point to still put his foot down. No boys allowed at the amusement park.
We'll be back at 10.
Remember, no boys!
But of course, LaCienega, being the boy crazy one, literally brings binoculars to the amusement park to literally find them, scope them out. And it begins. The whole reason why I'm making this video in the first place. LaCienega scopes out the football team, but makes it a point to point out the fat one.
Oh, you don't need binoculars to see this one. Check out Gordito.
Girl, I thought he was one of the rats.
This episode wanted to have a conversation about fatphobia. What is fatphobia? Fatphobia, also known as anti-fatness, is the implicit and explicit bias of overweight individuals that is rooted in a sense of blame and presumed moral failing. Being overweight and/or fat is highly stigmatized in Western culture. Anti-fatness is intrinsically linked to anti-blackness, racism, classism, misogyny, and many other systems of oppression. Anti-fatness contributes to individuals not receiving adequate health care for a number of reasons. 1, the assumption is if someone is overweight, they cannot be healthy. 2, clinical care teams typically lack experience in treating diverse body sizes. And 3, weight-related structural barriers, for example, size of exam tables, gowns, blood pressure cuffs, and scale limits. And I didn't really talk too much about LaCienega in the last video, but LaCienega has such a nasty spirit. Like, she is literally the definition of misery loves company. She hadn't even met this boy, and when she was talking about all of them in a row, she called this boy the team bus. Like, that is so nasty. And she even calls Zoe goofy for pointing out that their parents embarrassed them before they left. Like, is that so horrible to say parents embarrass you all the time? That makes her goofy? No. Anyway, after LaCienega points out the football team, they immediately get to fighting over who's not gonna get the fat one. So LaCienega comes up with a rule that the first one to talk to them is the boy that they get. And guess who comes up to LaCienega?
Remember me? Carlos, from the 5th grade.
After some pushback on LaCienega's rule at first, they're okay with this outcome and immediately go talk to the other boys. And this scene just had me like, come on now, Penny. Why the hell did she just leave BB and Cece alone like that to go talk to those boys? And with LaCienega at that. That's like walking the twins into the witch's house from Hansel and Gretel. LaCienega does this switcheroo, distracting Penny with the fact that she left the twins alone and takes the date that Penny had, whose name was Nick, leaving Penny with Carlos.
LaCienega said you like big guys, so we decided to switch.
Oh, I can't stand her!
And I thought this was really messed up. Not the fact that Penny got Carlos as a date, but the fact that LaCienega used this, I heard you like big guys, as a way to do the switcheroo for Penny to get Carlos. Like, I literally hate bullying, especially when the person is so sweet that they don't understand that they're being the butt of the joke. Maybe they do, but that just makes me cringe so bad, and it just makes me it makes my heart hurt. I actually feel like this episode didn't handle the topic of fatphobia and fat shaming all that well. It's like they were trying to have a bigger conversation, but we're still being a part of the problem. And it wasn't just the LaCienega of it all. As Penny is spending more time with Carlos, she just allows her fat phobia to get the best of her. The preconceived notion that they're not going to be able to have fun or participate in anything at the amusement park because he's just so big. She's jumping off the deep end, thinking about how badly things are going to go if they get on these rides together. But this is after the writers poke fun at Carlos's weight for denying him a chance to get on the ride.
All right, big boy, didn't you read the sign?
They are literally playing like elephant sounds, fart noises, and even putting emphasis on the fact that he just keeps eating. Carlos is also voiced by Kel Mitchell of Keaton and Kel, who is just putting on his best Biggie Smalls impression this whole time. Penny even tries to get Carlos to stand up for himself against LaCienega, but he says that he's taught to not get mad and to get even. But after he was denied entry on the ride that they were all getting on, LaCienega says that the only place that he can fit is the food court, which isn't even a good joke. And his solution to that was to go to the food court. Again, a writing issue. But I also think that people's solution to combat discrimination is to portray people in the opposite of their stereotype, but actually don't realize that that's doing people more harm than good. So sure, Carlos's solution after all of this was to go to the food court, but like, he's a hungry guy that also happens to be fat. I made this point in a really old 𝙈𝙪𝙨 video. In fact, I think it was my very first 𝙈𝙪𝙨 video, that our insecurities aren't even sometimes at the hands of ourselves. Sometimes insecurities can be planted in you like Inception. People just literally don't know how to keep comments to themselves and are sometimes bold enough to nitpick you to your face. Growing up, me personally, I don't remember being self-conscious, but being perceived was like the worst thing that could ever happen to me. I say this as I'm putting videos up on YouTube. But a common story for Black girls, especially dark-skinned ones like me, was your skin tone being nitpicked when you come back to school after summer vacation. And I can only imagine the hell that the kids are going through these days with this horrible freaking big back trend. Like, kids are so cruel. It's like, I feel like they would eat me alive and I wouldn't make it. And you know, sometimes the hate is calling from inside the house. A lot of our insecurities can be traced back to our parents being not so nice people. In that video, I remember a lot of comments with people talking about how their moms would always comment about their weight, how they can look different, comparing them to their other siblings, and that can be very detrimental to your self-esteem, especially growing up. But honestly, at the root of this conversation, which is why I didn't go too much back and forth with people that had something to say about fat phobia not existing, is that people don't want to give up being mean. People call our generation sensitive for just wanting better for people that are directly affected by this harm. But imagine back in the day, people were saying you're being too sensitive when our people had to sit in the back of the bus. Is it a crime for wanting to dream of a better tomorrow? People can so easily turn a blind eye to other people's problems, especially if it doesn't directly affect them. But it actually takes courage to do the opposite. Simply put, I know y'all remember this saying growing up, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it.
Anyways, after Penny is afraid to get on downfall with Carlos, which is like supreme scream for my fellow Californians, they decide to get on the merry-go-round.
This was Penny's breaking point, so she decides it's time to go check on BB and Cece, which, yeah, where are BB and Cece? Penny calls Carlos tired and is really about to do him in when they hear screaming. The screams are people in terror because BB and Cece have somehow gotten out of the daycare and snuck onto a ride. The craziest ride at the park at that. Carlos springs into action to save the twins, and I was just confused at the Proud family physics of it all. I think I need a crash course on how Carlos was, one, denied a ride for being too big at first, but then in the name of saving BB and Cece, he rode this whole damn ride with no seatbelt. Also earlier, the seat kept getting bigger and bigger, and this episode actually is very weird, but I'm not gonna touch on that. The talking is like really slow, and it is one of the earlier episodes of the Proud family. And there's also this super weird side plot of like Oscar and Carlos hating their wives. But I just think that that's that like old sitcom-y, you know, I hate my wife humor that a lot of old shows have for some reason, but that's not the conversation that we're having here today. I mean, if we want to talk about it, we can talk about it in the comments. But I thought it was so weird that after dissing Carlos all night, Penny immediately went to Carlos and expects him to save the day. Then he actually saved the day, and now he's Penny's hero. This was such beat it chick core. But one thing I can say that I admired about Carlos's character was that he wasn't that bullied bully. So often, people who were bullied or picked on decide to turn into the bully and torment people they view as lesser in the same ways that they were. And even worse, doing this to their own kind, which is the ultimate sin, because what does that say about how you see yourself? One thing I noticed as somebody who hates bullying is that this is so often done with kids and animals. Like, people will get animals just to pick on them in ways that they know that they can't fight back. Parents do this with their kids. It's really weird. And honestly, truly, I can say my biggest problem is how fast I can put on a Superman cape. Just stand up for somebody in the bullied part of this situation. Like, if I just hear something that's like do 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 do, and I'm like springing into action, I don't even realize how fast I'm springing into action. And in hindsight, I'm like, you know, you could have really put yourself in some crazy situations, but in the moment it feels good to be that person. And it feels good after the fact, but I'm like, bruh, why did you spring into action that fast? You could have really put yourself in harm's way. And this literally sounds so backhanded. Like, what are your greatest weaknesses? I would say that my greatest weakness is how fast I stand up for bullying. I'm just so caring and courageous that it gets me into trouble sometimes. And I really hope it's not coming off like that, but like, that's, as I'm saying it, that's how it's sounding right now. But anyway, you don't have to be exceptional to be accepted. Carlos didn't have to prove himself to be seen by the pretty girl that he liked. He was already sweet and brave when they were picking on him. They just didn't give him a chance because of their own biases. And I guess the other girls learned their lessons though, because while Penny was over there winning prizes with her boo thing, the other girls were standing around soaked, waiting on towels from their dates, just to find them talking to other girls. And remember that thing I said about bullies and projection? Yeah, LaCienega, literally standing there drenched, decided to still take shots at Carlos. Misery literally loves company.
He even won this teddy bear for me. A pie eating contest? You know what, LaCienega, if you say one more thing.
That's okay, Penny. I'm bigger than that.
That you are.
Sunset keeps her promise and picks the girls up at 10, but Penny didn't keep her promise to her dad to not talk to any boys. So as soon as she gets home, of course, Oscar questioned her on who that boy was that she was talking to. Penny denies that she knew who he was when she got there, which is true, but uh-oh.
Hey, Carlos. What are you doing here?
You left your stuffed animal at the park.
Carlos comes to the door not once, but twice. And I will say, as someone who doesn't discriminate when it comes to dating, sometimes when you give that person a chance that doesn't really ever get a chance, they start acting like they don't have no goddamn sense. And in this case, Penny got a bugaboo on her hands. Like, Carlos is still sweet and nice, but you gotta dial it back, player. And how the hell did you get this girl's address? This obviously gets Penny in a lot of trouble, because why the hell would Carlos call their time together a date in front of her dad? Penny is frustrated because her parents tell her to grow up, but when she tries to do things on her own, there's a million stipulations. So she storms off to her room, and Oscar puts it on Trudy to go have a talk with her. But Trudy was like, this is between y'all. Oscar sticks to the fact that he doesn't have to explain why Penny can't date, because he doesn't have to explain these things to a kid. But when he finally makes his way to Penny, he still can't formulate why she can't. It's like, I can tell you a reason why Penny can't date right now, but why can't Oscar explain his own damn rule? Penny verbally tells him that she doesn't understand this rule, and this was Oscar's response.
That's it, baby, right there. You don't understand. You're just like your mother when she was young. You see her pretty face and the next thing you know, you're married. Not that it didn't turn out good for your mother. She was one of the lucky ones.
Like, bro, what are you talking about? And as I suspected, Oscar was just afraid that his own daughter was going to talk circles around him when they had this conversation. Because Penny actually does understand, but if Oscar's reason is just going to be just because, Penny is going to act oblivious because the point is not explicitly stated. And in the end, Penny becomes more accepting and says that when it comes to dating, it's about character more than it is looks. And I found it weird that she kind of compared him to her dad. It's even that one Beyonce song that we shall not speak of. And I mean, it's okay, girl, you can shoot for both. You can shoot for looks and character. And of course, based on your own attraction, not society's ideas of it.
He's a good person, and that's what's important. Not how cute a guy is, how much ice he's wearing, what kind of car he drives. I'm sorry, Daddy, I interrupted you.
Everything you just said, but I guess you figured it out for yourself.
I think sometimes the Proud family tries to have these serious conversations, and in this case, you know, fat phobia and fat shaming, but the show kind of gets caught up in its own hyperbolic nature that it turns from a serious conversation into a mockery. But you know, that also could just be because the writers have their own biases that they need to work through. One thing I liked about this episode was that they actually focused on the guy that was being the butt of the joke when it comes to the conversation about fat phobia, because you know, in movies like Shallow Hal or just every other thing, it usually focuses on women, which women are nitpicked, and literally just did a video on My Wife and Kids about how they were being super fat phobic and fat shaming the main character Jade after she just had a baby. Yeah, because guys actually do have body image issues too, because it's a human issue. It just makes me think of the show The Circle, because a lot of times in that show, the guys come on the show and catfish as someone who they deem as more attractive, whether that's them coming on as an attractive woman or an attractive guy, because it's a popularity contest and a social popularity contest at that, and they feel like they'll have a better chance if people perceive them a certain way because they themselves don't fit into the societal mold of what we deem to be attractive. But of course, these are my opinions, so I would like to know your opinions. How do you think the topic of fat phobia was handled in this episode? Was it good or was it bad? And although Carlos kept a positive attitude, how do you feel like LaCienega's behavior towards him could have affected him? And why do you think they were being apprehensive on checking her for her behavior towards him? Let me know in the comments down below. I hope you all enjoyed this video. That is all that I have for you guys today. If you would like to keep up with me again outside of YouTube, you can follow me on TikTok, Instagram. Why was I about to say Snapchat? No. Anyway, TikTok, Instagram, Blue Sky, Twitter, all that information is in the description box down below. And if you made it to the end of this video, make sure you give this video a big thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and make sure you hit the notification bell to stay up to date with posts and uploads from me. But for now, I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Again, thank you so much for the love that you showed on my previous 2 videos. And I hope to see you guys in my next upload.